Four empires, four different roads to power. Only one question has kept historians arguing for centuries. Which one truly changed the world the most? One built its power on disciplined soldiers who fought as a single machine, and laws that would outlive the men who wrote them. One built it on fierce horsemen who could ride for days without rest, and cities that surrendered before a single arrow was fired. One built it on position a crossroads between three continents, held for over 600 years. And one built it on the sea, a small island kingdom that ended up ruling a quarter of the planet. Rome, the Mongols, the Ottomans, Britain, each of them shook continents. Each of them governed millions. Each of them left the world different from how they found it. And each of them eventually fell. So, how do we actually measure greatest? Is it the size of an empire's armies, the wealth of its cities, the strength of its laws, or just how much of it is still shaping our lives today, centuries after it disappeared? In the next hour, we're not going to settle this with legend or national pride. We're going to walk through the rise, the peak, and the fall of all four empires, and judge them side by side on the same six measures: military power, government, innovation, economy, culture, and lasting impact. By the end, you'll have the full picture, and you can decide for yourself which empire really changed the world the most. It starts, as so much of Western history does, on the banks of a small river in central Italy. According to legend, Rome was founded in 753 BC by Romulus, after he killed his own twin brother, Remus, in a dispute over where the city's walls should stand. The city that grew out of this violent origin story would go on to reshape civilization itself. In its early centuries, Rome wasn't the strongest power in Italy. The Etruscans and the Greek colonies to the south looked far more likely to dominate the peninsula. What Rome had instead was a talent for absorbing what worked. It borrowed its alphabet, copied the military tactics of its enemies, and adopted the customs of every people it conquered. Every war made Rome a little stronger, not just in territory, but in what it had learned. Around 509 BC, Rome overthrew its last king and founded the Roman Republic, a system where elected magistrates and the Senate shared power. It wasn't a democracy by modern standards, but it was a genuine experiment in shared governance, and it would hold for nearly 500 years. The engine behind Rome's rise was its army. Roman legionaries trained constantly and fought as a coordinated unit rather than as individual warriors, chasing glory shields locked, formations tight, discipline absolute. As Rome tightened its grip on Italy, it built roads to move troops and trade faster than any rival could react, a network that would eventually stretch over 80,000 kilometers. But Italy was only the beginning. Across the sea sat a wealthy rival that dominated Mediterranean trade: Carthage. The clash between the two powers would produce one of history's most famous generals and nearly destroy Rome before it had properly begun. The wars that forged an empire. In 218 BC, Hannibal Barca did what Rome thought was impossible. He marched an army, including war elephants, over the Alps in winter and appeared in northern Italy almost unopposed. Over the next several years, he handed Rome one crushing defeat after another. At Cannae in 216 BC, his double envelopment of a much larger Roman army was so effective, tens of thousands of Roman soldiers died in a single afternoon. It's still taught in military academies today. Most powers would have collapsed. Rome didn't. It rebuilt its armies, refused to meet Hannibal head-on again, and instead wore him down over years. When the general Scipio Africanus carried the war to Carthage's own doorstep in North Africa, Hannibal was forced to abandon Italy to defend home soil, and in 202 BC, at the Battle of Zama, Rome finally broke Carthage for good. Wealth, grain, and captives poured into the Republic as its armies pushed east into the old territories of Alexander the Great's successors. But that new wealth created new problems: ambitious generals with loyal armies and bigger appetites than the Senate could control. Political rivalries turned violent, and the Republic that had united Italy now stood on the edge of tearing itself apart. One of those ambitious generals was a war hero from his campaigns in Gaul, Julius Caesar. In 49 BC, ordered by the Senate to disband his army, he instead marched it across a small river called the Rubicon into Roman territory. an act of open rebellion. Rome would never be a republic again. From republic to empire. Caesar's civil war ended in victory, and he returned to Rome as its unrivaled leader, eventually named dictator for life. To some, he was the man who had saved Rome from chaos. To others, he was the man destroying it. On the Ides of March, 44 BC, a group of senators stabbed him to death in the Senate House, believing they were rescuing the Republic. Instead, they triggered an even bloodier civil war. Out of that chaos rose Caesar's adopted heir, Octavian, who defeated his last rival, Mark Antony, at the Battle of Actium in 31 BC. In 27 BC, the Senate gave him a new title, Augustus. He claimed to have restored the Republic. In reality, he had become Rome's first emperor. Under Augustus, decades of civil war gave way to nearly 2 centuries of relative peace, known as the Pax Romana. Roads expanded, taxes were reorganized, a professional army secured the frontiers, and trade flowed from Britain to Egypt. Rome itself grew into a city of over 1 million people, a scale no European city would match again for 1,000 years. The empire at its height. By 117 AD, under Emperor Trajan, Rome had reached its greatest territorial extent, stretching from Britain to Mesopotamia, home to roughly 1/5 of the world's population. But its real strength wasn't the land it held, it was what it built on that land. Aqueducts moved millions of liters of water a day. The Colosseum, finished in 80 AD, could hold 50,000 spectators. Merchants moved olive oil, grain, silk, and spices across a Mediterranean that had effectively become a Roman lake. Rome's most lasting legacy, though, may be its law, the idea of written statutes, contracts, and property rights that still underpins much of Western legal tradition today. Latin, meanwhile, evolved into Italian, Spanish, French, Portuguese, and Romanian, and left deep marks on English itself. But no empire escapes decline. Frontiers grew too expensive to defend. Emperors were overthrown with alarming regularity, and outside pressure mounted. In 395 AD, Rome split permanently into eastern and western halves. The east would endure for another 1,000 years. The west did not. In 476 AD, the last Western Roman emperor was deposed, traditionally marking the fall of the Western Roman Empire. Rome never really disappeared, though. Its laws shaped governments, its language shaped tongues, its engineering shaped cities that still stand. But to find the next great empire, we have to leave the Mediterranean behind entirely and ride east, onto the open grasslands of Central Asia. The rise of Genghis Khan. Picture the steppe of Central Asia. No cities, no walls, just wind and grass to the horizon, where survival depended entirely on your horse and your instincts. For generations, scattered nomadic tribes fought each other over grazing land and livestock. No one thought they'd ever threaten a real civilization. Around 1162, a boy named Temujin was born into one of those tribes. His father was poisoned by rivals while he was still young, and his family was left to fend for itself on the open steppe, hunting, foraging, simply surviving. It taught him a lesson that would define his future army. Loyalty was earned through ability, not handed down through noble birth. Over years of alliance building, betrayal, and warfare, Temujin united the fractured Mongol tribes under his command. In 1206, a great tribal assembly, a Kurultai, gave him a new title, Genghis Khan, roughly universal ruler. For the first time, the Mongol clans stood as one. He didn't stop there. Genghis Khan turned his horsemen into one of the most mobile and disciplined fighting forces the world had ever seen. Riders carried multiple horses to keep moving at speed for days. Signal flags and relay riders coordinated armies across vast distances. Feigned retreats lured overconfident enemies into deadly ambushes. Against slower, more rigid armies, the Mongols hit like a storm and vanished before anyone could regroup. The conquests that shook the world. The first kingdoms in their path assumed stone walls and large garrisons would be enough. They were wrong. Against the Jin dynasty in northern China, the Mongols proved they could learn as fast as they could fight, adopting siege engines and trebuchets from captured Chinese and Persian engineers until no fortified city was truly safe. When the Khwarezmian Empire executed Mongol envoys after a diplomatic dispute, Genghis Khan treated it as a declaration of war and answered with a campaign so fast and coordinated that one of Central Asia's richest empires collapsed within a few short years. Word of Mongol brutality spread ahead of the armies themselves, and fear alone made some cities surrender without a fight. Genghis Khan died in 1227, but the conquests didn't stop with him. His sons and grandsons pushed the empire into Russia, Persia, the Middle East, and deep into Eastern Europe, crushing European armies at Legnica and Mohi in 1241. For a moment, it looked like nothing could stop them, until the death of the great Khan pulled Mongol leaders back home to choose a successor, and Europe was spared less by battle than by timing. By the mid-13th century, the Mongol Empire stretched from the Pacific to the edge of Europe, the largest contiguous land empire in human history. Pax Mongolica. Conquest, though, was only half the story. What came after was, in its own way, just as remarkable. An era in which merchants, scholars, and ideas could move across Eurasia more safely than they had in generations. The Pax Mongolica. Under Mongol protection, sections of the Silk Road became safer and better connected than ever before. Chinese innovations like paper-making, printing, gunpowder, and the compass spread west, while ideas, medicine, and mathematics moved in every direction. The Mongols themselves were pragmatic rulers, generally allowing conquered peoples to keep their own religions. Loyalty to the Khan mattered more than what god you prayed to. To hold such an enormous territory together, they built the Yam, a relay network of way stations offering fresh horses and supplies to official messengers, letting news travel astonishing distances for the era. It was this stability that let a young Venetian merchant named Marco Polo travel all the way to the court of Kublai Khan and bring back stories that reshaped Europe's imagination of Asia. But the same routes that carried silk and ideas also carried the Black Death, which tore across Eurasia in the mid-14th century and killed tens of millions. The Mongols didn't cause the plague, but the connected world they built let it travel farther and faster than ever before. The fall and the legacy. No empire that size can survive succession disputes forever. After Genghis Khan's death, his descendants kept expanding, but rivalries deepened with every generation, and the empire eventually split into four khanates: the Yuan dynasty in China, the Golden Horde in Russia, the Ilkhanate in Persia, and the Chagatai Khanate in Central Asia. They shared a bloodline, but not always a purpose, and sometimes fought each other outright. In China, Kublai Khan's Yuan dynasty absorbed much of Chinese administration and built a new capital at what is now Beijing. But foreign rule was never fully accepted. The dynasty fell to rebellion in 1368. The other khanates faded in their own ways, through internal conflict or the rise of new regional powers, not in one dramatic collapse, but through decades of slow fragmentation. What the Mongols left behind, though, went well beyond their borders. A precedent for promoting talent over birthright, a revolution in mobile warfare, and a revived, accelerated network of trade and ideas between East and West, alongside the very real destruction and fear their conquests left in their wake. The Mongols mastered the land. The next empire we're following would master something else entirely: geography itself, sitting at the narrow crossing point between Europe, Asia, and Africa, and holding it for over 600 years. By 1299, the once mighty Byzantine Empire, the eastern continuation of Rome, was a shadow of itself. Shrinking borders, an empty treasury, emperors barely able to hold their remaining territory. On its frontier in northwestern Anatolia, a minor Turkish warlord named Osman began carving out a small principality. Almost no one noticed. Fewer still imagined it would change history, but Ottoman comes from his name. Osman had no grand army or famous capital, just a strong position between two declining and competing worlds. As his neighbors weakened, he expanded steadily, and his successors kept up the momentum, building a centralized state that could mobilize resources far more efficiently than the fractured feudal kingdoms of medieval Europe. By the early 1400s, Ottoman territory covered much of Anatolia and the Balkans, but one prize still eluded them: Constantinople. Founded by Constantine in 330 AD, and the Byzantine capital for over 1,000 years. Its walls had turned back Persians, Arabs, and countless other invaders. Whoever controlled it controlled the crossing point between Europe and Asia and access between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. Many had tried to take it. All had failed. In 1451, a 19-year-old sultan took the throne. European rulers dismissed him as inexperienced. They were badly wrong. His name was Mehmed II. History remembers him as Mehmed the Conqueror. The fall of Constantinople. On the 6th of April, 1453, nearly 80,000 Ottoman troops surrounded Constantinople. Mehmed, now 21, brought something new to siege warfare: massive bombards capable of firing stone balls that weighed hundreds of kilograms. Walls that had stood for 1,000 years began to crack under the bombardment, day after day. But the defenders, led by Emperor Constantine XI, kept repairing the damage each night, refusing to give up the city. When the Byzantine navy blocked the Golden Horn with a massive chain to protect the northern walls, Mehmed's engineers built wooden tracks over the hills and dragged dozens of Ottoman ships overland at night, bypassing the chain entirely. By morning, enemy ships floated inside the harbor, and the city was surrounded on every side. After nearly 2 months of siege, Mehmed ordered the final assault before dawn on the 29th of May, 1453. Constantine XI is said to have torn off his imperial insignia and died fighting alongside his soldiers in the breach. By midday, the Ottoman banner flew over the city. Rather than destroy it, Mehmed made Constantinople, soon to be known as Istanbul, his new capital. Mosques rose beside churches, markets reopened, and traders and scholars from across 3 continents helped rebuild it into one of the great cities of the early modern world. The Golden Age, with its new capital secured, the empire entered a period of extraordinary growth, eventually stretching from the gates of Vienna to the deserts of Arabia. Ruling such a diverse population required more than conquest. It required real administration, and the Ottomans built one of the era's most effective provincial systems, alongside an elite fighting force known as the Janissaries. They were originally recruited through the Devshirme system, which took some Christian boys from the Balkans into Ottoman service. The system was as controversial for separating families as it was militarily effective. The empire's peak came under Suleiman I, known in Europe as the Magnificent, and to his own people as the Lawgiver, who ruled from 1520 to 1566. His armies pushed into Hungary, his navy challenged Europe's strongest fleets, and just as importantly, he overhauled the legal system and championed architecture and scholarship. Under the great architect Mimar Sinan, mosques, bridges, and hospitals reshaped the capital's skyline. The Süleymaniye Mosque still stands as a monument to that era. Constantinople's Grand Bazaar became one of the largest commercial hubs on Earth, pulling in merchants from Venice to India. For most of the 1500s, the Ottoman Empire was one of the most powerful states on the planet. It was a genuine bridge between East and West, but new rivals were already forming across the sea. Decline, reform, and legacy. As European ships found sea routes around Africa to Asia, the old overland trade routes the Ottomans had controlled for centuries lost much of their value. At the same time, European militaries modernized faster than the Ottomans could keep pace with. Internally, the once elite Janissaries increasingly resisted the very reforms needed to compete. Even so, the empire endured for centuries longer, governing an extraordinary religious mix of Muslims, Christians, and Jews, who largely managed their own community affairs under the Sultan's authority. It was not equality by modern standards, but it was a system that let a vast, multi-faith empire function for generations. 19th century reforms, known as the Tanzimat, tried to modernize schools, law, the military, and infrastructure, but nationalist uprisings and European interference kept chipping away at Ottoman territory. World War I finished the job. Despite hard-fought victories like Gallipoli, the war exhausted the empire, and by 1922, the Ottoman Sultanate was abolished. In 1923, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk founded the Republic of Turkey, closing over 6 centuries of Ottoman rule. The empire's fingerprints remain across Istanbul, Sarajevo, Jerusalem, and beyond. In architecture, cuisine, music, and law, few empires in history matched its endurance at the crossroads of 3 continents. But the next empire we're covering would do something no civilization before it managed. It would connect every inhabited continent on Earth. In 1500, England was a minor player, a small population, a modest army, utterly overshadowed by the Ottomans, Ming China, or the memory of Rome and the Mongols. Nobody would have predicted this island would go on to build history's largest empire. The turning point was the sea. As shipbuilding and navigation improved, English sailors pushed further into the Atlantic. In 1588, the supposedly unstoppable Spanish Armada sailed to invade England and was broken by storms and English resistance. It proved, decisively, that control of the oceans could decide the fate of nations. Over the following century, English trading companies spread across the globe, none more powerful than the East India Company, which grew from a commercial venture into a force that negotiated treaties, built fortifications, raised private armies, and eventually governed enormous territories. Colonies took root in North America, the Caribbean, Africa, and Asia, and goods like sugar, tea, cotton, and spices flowed home through booming ports like London, Liverpool, and Bristol. Britain's real advantage, though, was the Royal Navy, the shield that protected trade routes across every ocean and let Britain project power thousands of kilometers from home. Where Rome connected its empire by road and the Mongols by horse, Britain connected the world by sea. And a revolution was about to make that reach even greater: the empire on which the sun never set. By the late 1700s, steam engines were transforming British factories, and Britain became the first nation to industrialize at scale, coal fueling its mills, iron building its railways and ships. Industrial power translated directly into imperial power. Steamships shortened ocean crossings, railways moved goods and troops across continents, and the telegraph carried messages across oceans in minutes. Through the 1800s, British influence spread to every inhabited continent. India passed from East India Company control to direct rule by the British Crown in 1858, becoming the empire's most valuable possession. Settler colonies grew across Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and parts of Africa, while strategic ports from Gibraltar to Singapore secured global trade. By the early 1900s, the empire covered roughly a quarter of the world's land and a quarter of its population, giving rise to the famous phrase, "The sun never set on the British Empire." London became the financial center of a genuinely global economy. English spread as a language of trade and administration, and institutions from common law to cricket followed British ships wherever they went. But this global reach came at a steep human cost. Colonial rule frequently enriched Britain at the direct expense of the people it ruled, provoking resistance movements across the empire whose consequences historians still debate today. Its legacy is inseparably both technological and institutional influence and colonial exploitation and inequality. The end of an empire and the birth of the modern world. At the dawn of the 20th century, the empire looked unshakable, the largest navy on earth, the world's most trusted currency, decisions made in London shaping the lives of hundreds of millions. Then came the First World War, and Britain emerged victorious but exhausted, its economy strained and its confidence shaken. The Second World War asked even more of it. Britain endured relentless bombing, defended vital supply lines at sea, and fought alongside Allied and Commonwealth forces across 3 continents. Victory in 1945 came at enormous cost. Britain's finances were depleted. New superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, now set the terms of global politics, and independence movements across Asia and Africa gained unstoppable momentum. India's independence in 1947 marked one of the defining turning points of the century. Ghana, Nigeria, Malaysia, Kenya, Jamaica, and dozens more followed over the next decades, and the empire gradually gave way to the Commonwealth, a voluntary association of independent states. Its influence outlived its borders, though. English remains one of the world's most spoken languages and a global language of science, aviation, and diplomacy. Legal and parliamentary systems shaped under British rule still function, adapted, in dozens of countries today. And its legacy remains genuinely contested. For some, a story of infrastructure and institutions. For others, one of domination and exploitation whose effects are still felt. Both are true, and both belong in the historical record. To judge these empires fairly, we have to use the same measuring stick for all four, not legend, not national pride, but history itself. Military power. If raw conquest is the measure, the Mongols win outright. No empire before or since expanded so much territory so fast or transformed the mechanics of warfare so completely. Government and law, Rome takes this one. Its legal principles, written statutes, contracts, property rights still echo through modern legal systems nearly 2,000 years later. Engineering and infrastructure, also Rome. Roads, aqueducts, and monuments built on a scale the ancient world had never seen, some of which are still standing. Trade and cultural exchange. The Ottomans, who held the meeting point of 3 continents for over 6 centuries and turned it into one of history's great commercial crossroads. Global reach. Britain, without much competition. No empire before it held territory on every inhabited continent or a navy that connected them all. Economic influence. Britain again. The Industrial Revolution, combined with global shipping and finance, built the framework of the modern economy. Culture doesn't produce a single winner. Rome gave the world law, language, and architecture. The Mongols connected civilizations across Eurasia. The Ottomans shaped art and cuisine across 3 continents. Britain spread its language and institutions worldwide. Each left a legacy too different to rank. Longevity favors the Ottomans and the Eastern Roman Empire, both of which endured for the better part of 1,000 years or more in one form or another. So, who changed the world the most? If it's conquest, it's the Mongols. If it's law and engineering, it's Rome. If it's trade and geography, it's the Ottomans. If it's global, modern-day influence, language, industry, finance, institutions, the strongest case belongs to Britain. But the honest answer is that there isn't one clean winner. Each empire reshaped the world in a different era, by different means, with different costs. Their achievements were real. So were the human costs behind them. And every one of them, no matter how unstoppable it looked at its peak, eventually fell. Maybe that's the actual lesson here. Power fades, borders shift, and even the greatest cities eventually crumble, but ideas don't. Roman law, Mongol trade routes, Ottoman architecture, the English language, all of it outlived the empires that created it, and all of it is still shaping the world you're living in right now. So, out of Rome, the Mongols, the Ottomans, and Britain, which one do you think actually changed the world the most? Drop your answer in the comments. I genuinely want to see the arguments. This video took a huge amount of research and work to put together. So if you got something out of it, a like and a subscribe would mean a lot. It's honestly the biggest way you can support the channel and help more videos like this get made. Thanks for watching all the way through, and I'll see you in the next one.